everybody, and welcome back to my super chill 6-part series on world building. So we've already covered waterways and land formations, and then last week we did flora and fauna and minerals. This week we're going to talk about the cosmos. So we're chugging right along, and I think it's going to be fun. So the cosmos basically refers to everything off planet. So that would be other planets, that would be the stars and the sun, that would be satellite planets like the moons, etc., etc. And it's the life on your planet and how it relates to the world outside of the planet, right? So the first thing we're talking about is the solar system. If you're going to have an Earth-like planet where it doesn't really matter, if you're not writing sci-fi or like way out there stuff, then this probably doesn't super matter. Like, you're probably not going to refer to Mars and Venus very often, and if you do, then you'll probably want to have a name and make it clear that they're kind of analogous to ours. But this is really more for if you're like going way out there and you're just throwing Earth completely out of the equation. The cosmos actually cosmos is singular, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, it has a big impact on life here on Earth. Much more than I think we realize in a modern sense. The sun affects the growth of plants and animals. In fact, the sun is really the only reliable source of vitamin D. Obviously, we put it in milk in the States, but only whole milk. And you can still get it for free just by sitting outside for like 15 minutes with some exposed skin. So, free and easy, and you need it. I mean, if you get a vitamin D deficiency, that's bad. The moon affects the tides. It also affects people more than we want to admit. That's why people get crazy around the full moon, where lunacy comes from, is because we are 75% water, and the moon can sometimes affect people in, kind of interesting ways. But the movement of the moon does affect the tides. The stars are used oftentimes for navigation. People can track where they are in the world by the stars that they can see in the sky. And a lot of ancient cultures tracked the passage of time by how the stars in the sky change. So that's how you get solstices and equinoxes, and you have big sites like Stonehenge and Newgrange, and I believe the Egyptian pyramids, some of them. And in Mexico, there are Mayan ruins that have some observation towers that they believe were used for astronomy. So these were super important to ancient cultures for not just prophecy. Prophecy is, astrology is what people tend to associate studying the stars with. But there was a lot of astronomy going on in the old days when they were trying to figure out how everything worked. The stars played a big part. The stars also have a huge impact on religion. Now, I know people just assume that everything that the ancients did was for religious reasons, but it wasn't. They had scientists as well, and they had people who questioned the myths and legends, and people who were more or less agnostic or atheist by our standards. So they did have scientists who were just studying them just to understand. But there also is a lot of emphasis on religion in a lot of the study of the stars. There are a lot of stories that are attributed to specific star formations. Usually, obviously, the stars were there first, and then the stories were created over time to explain the stars. And that we're going to get into religion in a bit. Not next week, but in quite a few weeks. But during the cultural portion of world building, we're going to talk about religion. But the stars do play a big part in that. And then just touching on astrology really quickly, there are people who, throughout history and even now, believe that the future can be determined, or the answers to certain questions, or people's personalities can be affected by the position of certain stars in relation to a certain event, like somebody's birth. This is not new. This has been around for a long time, but it does sometimes affect people's decision making. Either whole cultures or individual people will sometimes make decisions, major decisions in their lives, based on the stars. So this can come up in your writing if you have somebody who does believe in astrology, either in a modern sense or in an ancient sense. They might affect the plot according to the stars' positions. There's also an impact of darkness and celestial bodies on the natural world. For instance, there are some deserts. I don't remember exactly where, but they're very fascinating in that all of the plants kind of close. They're closed during the day to conserve their water, but then at nighttime they open up. And it's really beautiful. There are a lot of night blooming flowers, even here in California where I live. It's the same kind of principle in that the daytime is too hot, so they close up, and then at nighttime they come out and bloom. So that is something that happens all over the world in places where it's hot. Characters might choose to travel at night during a full moon because there's more light. They might also choose to travel during a new moon because there's less light. Now, the options for this, of course, is the reasons is because obviously if you can see, then other people can see, and you might not want to run into dangerous people on the road, or you might not want to be seen. So that's something to consider. You also want to consider your planet's position in the solar system. If it's closer to the Earth, it's going to be hotter. If it's farther from the Earth, it's going to be colder. And I don't mean like by a couple of degrees. I mean like some planets can't support life. Most planets. We're the only one. We're in the Goldilocks zone here with the right distance. I believe there was a Futurama episode where there was a planet with multiple suns. So that's something to consider. Is there nighttime on your planet at all? And how do they deal with all that excess heat and dryness? Perhaps you have multiple moons. Most of the planets in our solar system, or many of the planets in our solar system, have multiple moons. And how does that affect the tides, etc., on your planet? So all of these are things to consider. If you are going off-world, what are the names of the constellations on your planet? Can you even see the stars? Is there enough clarity in your atmosphere that you can see the stars? And if so, what stories do your people tell each other about what's out there? And I'm not even going to get into like aliens, because that's a whole other topic that I think you'll be able to get there after this world building series, so I don't think I need to actually touch on this specifically, but there could be other life out there. That's up to you to decide. That's not for me to tell you. So I think that about does it. This one's probably going to be the shortest one of the series just because it's so broad and esoteric. So I'm going to let you go on that one, and I will see you next time when we dive into culture. So, yeah, like and subscribe so you know when that one's going to be. I'll see you guys. Bye.